The first time I saw them standing in my living room, I thought I was hallucinating. My sister's kids were sprawled on the couch, cartoons blaring. My brother-in-law had his feet on the coffee table. And my parents, my own flesh and blood, were giving them a tour as if this house were theirs. I froze in the doorway, clutching my grocery bags so tight the plastic bit into my fingers. "What the hell are you doing here?" My mother turned, all casual smiles. "Sweetheart, don't be so dramatic. We just let your sister's family in. They needed the space more than you." If you're watching this, drop a comment below, hit like and subscribe, because what happened next is one of the most insane family betrayals you'll ever hear. My name is Lauren Carter. I'm 31 years old. And 3 months ago I bought a house in secret. A house I worked years to afford. But when my parents found out, they decided it wasn't really mine. They said it belonged to my sister's family. And they didn't just say it, they acted on it. Let me rewind. I'd been saving since my early 20s, working overtime shifts, skipping vacations, eating noodles when everyone else was dining out. My parents never took me seriously, always saying, "Lauren, you'll never manage on your own. Your sister, Hannah, she's the one with a real family to take care of." It was always Hannah. She had 3 kids, a husband who couldn't hold a job, and a history of bad luck. Every time she stumbled, my parents bailed her out. Meanwhile, I was invisible, unless they needed money. So when I signed the papers for this 3-bedroom brick house, I told no one. It was my secret victory. My independence. My escape. But somehow they found out. One afternoon, I came home from work to find the locks scratched, the spare key I'd left at their place missing. Later, I learned they'd literally called a locksmith when it didn't work anymore, claiming they were the rightful owners. And they didn't even deny it. My dad shrugged, saying, "Well, you're single. You don't need all this space. Hannah's family does." The rage that boiled inside me that night? I can't put it into words. Because this wasn't just about a house. It was about decades of being told my needs didn't matter. And now they were trying to erase me from my own life. What they didn't know. I had been keeping records. And I was about to remind them that this house had one name on the deed. Mine. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen and found Hannah making pancakes with my pans. Her kids were already spilling juice on my table. My brother-in-law, Greg, was scrolling his phone in my chair like a king. I slammed the grocery bags on the counter. "Get out." Hannah looked offended. "Lauren, don't be like that. Mom and Dad said you wouldn't mind. This house is way too big for you anyway." My jaw tightened. It's too big for me because I earned it. With my money. My name. My signature on every damn paper. Greg chuckled. "Relax. We're family. Family shares." Family shares. Those words tasted like poison. That night I drove to my parents' house. They were waiting like they knew I'd come. My mom started with her usual guilt trip. "Lauren, think of the children. Do you really need 3 bedrooms all to yourself?" I leaned forward, my voice sharp. "Yes. Because it's not about need. It's about ownership. This is my house." Dad waved his hand like I was being dramatic. "You're selfish, Lauren. Hannah's kids deserve stability. You'll understand when you're older." "I'm 31. I snapped. "And for once, I won't be the doormat you wipe your feet on." The silence after my words was deafening. For weeks they kept pushing. I'd come home to find Hannah's car in the driveway, my food missing, my space invaded. At one point I even caught Greg in the garage digging through my tools. That's when I realized they weren't just squatting. They were trying to take this house, as if repetition and entitlement could rewrite the law. So I gathered every receipt. The deed. The bank statements. The loan approvals. Every scrap of proof. And I decided, if they wanted a war, I'd bring it straight to their faces. The breaking point came one Saturday. I returned from work to find Hannah's family throwing a barbecue in my backyard. My neighbors were there, laughing, drinking, congratulating the new homeowners. I nearly dropped my keys. Hannah smiled wide, waving. "Surprise. We thought we'd make it official." The rage in me crystallized into ice. "Official," I said, my voice low but cutting through the chatter. "The only thing official is that you're trespassing on my property." The yard went silent. Neighbors glanced at each other nervously. Hannah's smile faltered. And in that moment I knew it was time to end their delusion once and for all. I stood there, gripping the fence so tight my knuckles whitened. The smell of burgers and smoke filled the air, but all I could taste was betrayal. My neighbors looked uneasy, their paper plates frozen midair. Hannah gave a nervous laugh, trying to smooth it over. Lauren's just joking. She's always so dramatic. I didn't blink. No. I'm dead serious. Everyone here, get out. This is my house. Greg swaggered up, beer in hand. Come on, Lauren. We're making the place lively. It's not like you're using it. I took a step closer, voice cold. Greg, if you don't pack it up right now, you'll be explaining yourself to the police. The neighbors started murmuring. Some quietly slipped away, embarrassed to be caught in the middle. Hannah's face flushed deep red. Lauren, you're humiliating us. I laughed bitterly. No, Hannah. You humiliated yourselves the moment you tried to steal from me. The next morning I went straight to a lawyer. I laid every detail on the table. The locksmith, the copied keys, the trespassing. He looked at me and said, legally you're in the right. Emotionally, they're going to drag this out. But if you're ready to fight, we'll fight. And I was ready. I filed a restraining order to stop them from entering without permission. I changed the locks again, upgraded my security, even installed cameras. When the papers were served, Hannah called me in hysterics. How could you do this to your own sister? She screamed. I let her rant until she ran out of breath. Then I said calmly, I didn't do this to you. You did this to yourself when you broke into my house. She hung up. Mom and Dad weren't far behind. They stormed into my office at work, red-faced with indignation. Mom hissed, how dare you drag family into court? I stood, looked her dead in the eye and said, how dare you hand over my house like it was yours to give? Dad pointed a finger at me. You'll regret this. One day you'll need us. I smirked. No. What I needed was parents who respected me. Instead, I got thieves wearing family masks. They left without another word. That night, sitting alone on my couch, I realized something. This wasn't just a property dispute. This was a war for my independence. For the years they'd dismissed me as less important than Hannah. And this time I wasn't backing down. The restraining order should have been the end of it. But my family never knew how to take no as an answer. 2 weeks later, I came home to find my front garden trampled, tire marks across the lawn, and my mailbox hanging by one hinge. My stomach dropped. I knew exactly who it was. The security cameras confirmed it. Greg's truck pulling into my driveway, Hannah storming up the porch, my parents standing behind them like they were orchestrating some kind of twisted protest. I clenched my fists as I replayed the footage. They hadn't just violated my property, they were testing how far they could push me. So I pushed back harder. The next morning, I walked into the police station with the footage in hand. The officer at the desk raised his brows. Family or not, this is trespassing and property damage. Do you want to press charges? My throat tightened. Pressing charges meant drawing a permanent line, one I could never uncross. But then I remembered Hannah cooking in my kitchen, my parents handing out my keys, Greg lounging on my couch like a king. I nodded. Yes. Press charges. When the summons was delivered, the explosion was immediate. Mom called me, her voice shaking with fury. Lauren, how could you drag your own blood through court? What will people think of us? I laughed bitterly. Maybe they'll finally think the truth, that you raised one daughter to believe she's entitled to everything, and another to believe she's nothing. Well, guess what? I'm not nothing anymore. She sputtered, this is revenge, not justice. No, I said, voice like ice. This is boundaries. Something you never taught me to have. Court day arrived. Hannah sat across from me, eyes puffy from crying, Greg glaring like he wanted to tear me apart. My parents avoided my gaze completely. The judge looked at the evidence. The deed, the security footage, the locksmith receipts. His verdict was swift. Hannah and her family were forbidden from entering my property again. Any further violation would mean arrest. It was over. Legally at least. But emotionally, I could see it in Hannah's eyes as she left the courtroom. The war in her mind wasn't finished. And I knew my parents wouldn't forgive me for choosing the law over their twisted idea of family loyalty. As I walked out into the sunlight, the papers in my hand, I whispered to myself, this house is mine. My life is mine. But I also knew, the fallout at the next family gathering would be nuclear. The family fallout came sooner than I expected. 2 days after court, my phone buzzed with a message, family dinner. Sunday. Be there. We need to talk. Mom. My first instinct was to ignore it. But part of me was curious. What excuse could they possibly come up with now? So I went, though every step into that house felt like walking into enemy territory. The dining room looked the same as always. Same chandelier, same long oak table. But the air was heavy, charged. Hannah sat there with her arms crossed, Greg beside her fuming. The twins avoided eye contact. Daniel scrolled his phone, pretending not to be involved. And at the head of the table, Mom and Dad stared at me like a jury about to pass sentence. Lauren, Mom began, her voice clipped. This situation you've created has humiliated us. Do you have any idea what people are saying? That you dragged your own sister into court. I laughed, cold and sharp. I didn't create this situation. You did. The moment you gave away a house that wasn't yours to give. Dad slammed his fist against the table. Enough. That house should have gone to Hannah. She has children. A family to support. I leaned forward, meeting his glare. And what do I have? 15 years of savings, skipped vacations, overtime shifts. Everything I sacrificed to buy that house. You didn't help me, not once. And yet you think you can decide who deserves it. The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, Hannah spoke, her voice trembling but defiant. You've always been selfish, Lauren. You don't understand what it's like to raise kids, to struggle every day. My hands shook, but my words came out steady. You're right. I don't have kids. But I understand sacrifice. And I'm done sacrificing for people who treat me like a backup plan. Greg muttered something under his breath, but I ignored him. My eyes stayed on Hannah. You barged into my home, ate my food, trashed my lawn, and tried to erase me from my own life. That's not struggling, Hannah. That's entitlement. Her face turned red, and for once she had no comeback. I stood, pushing my chair back slowly. I'm done defending myself to this family. I bought that house for me. And if you can't respect that, then maybe I don't need to be at this table anymore. Their stunned faces followed me as I walked out. And deep down I knew this wasn't just about a house. This was about finally choosing myself. Something I should have done years ago. I didn't hear from them for weeks after that dinner. Not a text, not a call. For the first time in my life, the silence was mine to enjoy. No one asking for money, no one guilting me, no one treating me like I was second place to Hannah. But silence doesn't last forever. One afternoon, I came home from work and found a handwritten note shoved under my door. The shaky cursive told me immediately, it was Mom's. Lauren, your father isn't well. Please come. We need you. My stomach clenched. Every instinct screamed it might be another manipulation. But a small part of me, despite everything, still cared. So I went. When I walked into their living room, the whole family was there. Hannah's kids were on the couch, the twins were leaning against the wall. Daniel stood with his arms folded. And there was Dad, thinner than I remembered, looking worn and tired. He coughed, then managed, Lauren, sit. I sat, bracing myself. Mom cleared her throat. We've realized some things. About how we treated you. I raised an eyebrow. Realized or just ran out of options? Dad's voice cracked. Maybe both. But it doesn't change the truth. You worked harder than all of us. And we treated you like you were less. That was wrong. For a second the world stopped spinning. My father, stubborn, unyielding, was admitting fault. Hannah shifted uncomfortably. Her eyes darted away. Finally, she muttered, I shouldn't have moved into your house. It wasn't fair. The words weren't perfect, but they were more than I'd ever expected. I took a deep breath. Do you have any idea what it felt like? To walk into my own living room and see you acting like I didn't exist. Hannah's eyes glistened. Yes. And I'm sorry. The room was heavy with silence. For the first time they were looking at me not as the backup, not as the ATM, not as the selfish single sister, but as the one who held the family together longer than anyone wanted to admit. I stood looking around at each of them. I won't forget what you did. But I'll accept your apology. On one condition, never again will you treat me like I don't matter. I earned my place. And you're going to respect it. They nodded, quietly, almost shamefully. For the first time in my life I felt like they finally understood. The house wasn't just four walls. It was proof of my worth. But deep down I knew the final test of our family was still to come. Summer turned into fall, and for a while things felt different. My family actually kept their distance. No surprise visits, no copied keys, no entitled demands. For once my house stayed mine. But change in my family was never simple. It always came with strings. In September, Hannah showed up at my door. Alone, no kids, no Greg. She held a coffee in one hand, her eyes puffy from crying. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I hesitated, but I opened the door. We sat at my kitchen table, the same one where she once tried to claim my space as hers. She fiddled with her cup before blurting out, "Greg left. He said he was tired of living under this cloud." I blinked. "Cloud? You mean consequences?" She winced but didn't argue. "I don't blame you for hating me. But the kids, they keep asking why they can't see Aunt Lauren anymore. And I don't have an answer that doesn't make me look awful." I studied her face. For the first time there wasn't arrogance, just exhaustion. She looked like a woman finally realizing the cost of her entitlement. I spoke carefully. "Hannah, I don't hate you. But I hate what you did. You tried to erase me from my own life. Do you understand how deep that cut?" Her eyes welled up. "Yes. And I'm sorry. Really sorry." The words were simple, but they cracked something inside me. I'd waited years to hear them. A week later, Mom called too. Not to demand, not to guilt trip, but to ask if I'd join Sunday dinner. Against my better judgment, I went. This time, the table wasn't an ambush. It was quieter, humbler. No speeches about how Hannah deserved more. No shaming glances at me. Just food, small talk, and the faintest attempt at peace. At one point, Dad cleared his throat. "Lauren, thank you for not giving up on us completely." I looked around. For once, their faces weren't masks of entitlement. They were faces of people who had finally been forced to see me as more than the family's safety net. Driving home that night, I realized something. I hadn't just won a legal battle. I had forced them to see my worth. My house wasn't just bricks and drywall. It was a symbol. Proof that I wasn't disposable. Proof that I could stand on my own. But as the holidays approached, one last test waited. The same table where it all began. And this time the ending would be mine to write. The holidays came faster than I expected. 1 year since I'd signed the papers for my house. 1 year since I'd walked in and found my family sitting in my living room as if I were a guest in my own life. And now here we were again. Christmas Eve, the Carter family gathered around the dining table. The same chandelier glowed overhead. The same garland wrapped the banister. But the energy was different. Tense. Hesitant. Almost respectful. I took my seat, this time not at the far corner where I usually shrank away, but right in the middle. Eyes turned toward me, not with judgment but with a strange kind of expectation. Mom cleared her throat. "Lauren," she began, her voice trembling, "I know last Christmas was ugly. Ugly. That was one word for it." I raised an eyebrow but stayed quiet. She continued, "I can't undo what we said, or what we did. But I want you to know. I see you now. I see how hard you've worked. And I'm sorry we made you feel like you didn't matter." The room went still. Hannah stared at her plate, tears glistening in her eyes. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, the twins fidgeted. But for once no one interrupted. I leaned back, letting her words sink in. 4 years I'd been the shadow, useful when they needed me, invisible otherwise. And now my mother was admitting it aloud. Finally I spoke. "You didn't just make me feel like I didn't matter. You treated me like I didn't. You handed my house to Hannah as if I didn't exist. You all crossed a line that day." Hannah's voice cracked. "I know. And I regret it every single day. Greg's gone. He couldn't handle the fallout, and maybe I drove him away by going along with it all. But the kids, they need stability. They need to know family isn't about taking. It's about respecting. And I need them to see me owning my mistakes." Her words caught me off guard. For once she wasn't blaming me. She was taking responsibility. I turned to Dad. "And what about you?" His jaw tightened, but then he exhaled slowly. "I was wrong too. I thought giving Hannah's family the house was the right thing. But I see now it was just easier for us to lean on you than face our failures. I should have been proud of you, Lauren. Instead, I tore you down." My chest tightened. For decades I'd wanted that acknowledgement. And hearing it now, it didn't erase the hurt, but it stitched together something broken inside me. Dinner continued in uneasy peace. The food tasted the same as every Christmas before, but the silence wasn't heavy. It was reflective. For the first time, my family wasn't speaking over me. They were watching me, waiting for how I'd respond. When dessert plates were cleared, I stood. My voice didn't shake. I want you all to hear me clearly. That house is mine. It represents years of sacrifice, sweat, and independence. No one will ever take it from me again. But more than that, it represents me. My worth. My existence. And if you want me in this family, you'll respect that. They nodded one by one. Even Mom, whose pride had always been impenetrable, whispered, "We will." Driving home later, I passed by the glowing houses on my street, my own porch light waiting for me like a beacon. When I walked inside, the warmth of my home wrapped around me. My space. My sanctuary. For the first time, I wasn't weighed down by guilt or resentment. I had set boundaries and they had finally been heard. Was everything perfect now? No. Family scars don't vanish overnight. But I wasn't the invisible daughter anymore. I wasn't the backup plan. I was Lauren, the woman who fought for her place and won. To everyone watching this, have you ever had family try to erase your worth? Share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. Because here's the truth. Blood doesn't give anyone the right to steal your life.